And finally, the last essay for the political portion of the stream. Not sure if I'm going to continue afterwards. I probably will end the stream after I read this. But it's been a good stream, and I hope everyone enjoyed. It's from Bell Hooks. I don't know if Bell Hooks identifies herself as being like an anarchist, but she's definitely a feminist. I think she had like the Marxist traditions of had Marxist academics training in Marxist academics tradition. So she sees some things from like a bit of a class struggle standpoint and dialectical material since they were. So academically, she's a Marxist. But from what I read of her writings as well, of like the patriarchal system as well. And what was the book I did read? I should reread it, honestly. Probably read it for a stream as well. It was Everyone's a Feminist, or Feminism for Everyone, I think, which is a good introductory book for feminists. And so Bell Hooks, at the very least, is like a revolutionary feminist, instantly. So I think that she's, I'm not sure if she like sees herself as an anarchist or not. Oh, side notes, just quickly remind you about Mona Efleni, who wrote that previous essay about like time for fire and guillotines. She was, it seems to be a revolutionary feminist as well, and that's also enough for me. And been badass about like saying fuck the patriarchy almost every video she does. But she has actually said that herself, Mona Efleni, on Twitter, that she is a anarchist, and it's like that just makes her more awesome in my book as well. And as I said, pointed out in the first essay that I read tonight, about why class first leftists are wrong, by Nolan Blasky, is that like anyone that is a feminist as well as an anarchist, I greatly respect. Not sure if Bell Hooks is an anarchist, but I respect her for being like a revolutionary feminist writer and with a Marxist tradition as well. So this was retrieved 2009. This article has been edited for space and read full text. Feminism for Everybody, Passion and Politics by Bell Hooks, published by the Southend Press. That's the essay that's the book I did read, Feminism for Everything, Passion and Politics. But here's the excerpt from that book by Bell Hooks. Feminist Class Struggle. And this will be the last essay for the stream. So I'll read. Class differences, and so Bell Hooks, Feminist Class Struggle. Class differences and the way in which it divides women was a issue women in the feminist movement talked about long before race. It is in the mostly white circles of the newly formed women's liberation movement, the most glaring separation between women was that of class. White working women recognized that class hierarchies were present in the movement. Conflicts arose between the reformist versions of women's liberations, which basically demand equal rights for women within the existing class structure, and more radical and/or revolutionary models, which called for a fundamental change in the existing structure so that models of mutuality and equality could replace the old paradigms. However, as the feminist movement progressed and privileged groups of educated white women began to achieve equal access to class power with their male counterparts, a feminist class struggle was born. I'll drink my tea. I'll finish off my tea. As there goes my hat. And I hope everyone is doing well in the live chat. Yeah, thank you everyone for like watching. So I can finish off. So I'll continue from the essay. From the offset of the movement, women from privileged classes were able to make their concerns the issue that should be like focused in, because they were the group of women who received public attention. Kind of like caste privilege kind of like thing as well. They attract mass media. The issue that were most relevant to working women. Yeah, I just want to like check in something, just because sometimes I get paranoid about like, wait a minute, can people hear me? And people can't hear me. So, where was I in the essay? attract mass media. The issues that were most relevant to working women were never highlighted by mainstream mass media. Side note, it's still true today, honestly. So I'll continue with the essay. Betty Friedan's The Feminist Mystique identified the problem that has no name as the dissatisfaction females felt about being confined and subordinated in the home as housewives. While this issue was presented as a crisis for women, it really was only a crisis for a small group of well-educated white women. While they were complaining about the dangers of confinement in the home, a huge majority of women in the nation were in the workforce, and many of these working women who put in long hours for low wages were still doing all the work in the domestic household would have seen the right to stay at home as freedom. This is so. Yeah, so when class first leftists talk about the working class people sort of thing, that's the kind of working class people that are also part of that movement as well. So we gotta be concerned about their concerns as well as everyone else's. So just putting class first in front of everything else, I think it's kind of the wrong way to go about things. So anyway, I'll continue. It was not gender discrimination or sexist oppression. Continue from the article, the essay. It was not gender discrimination or sexist oppression that kept privileged women of all races from working outside the home. It was the fact that the jobs that would have been available to them would have been the same low-paying, unskilled labor open to all working women. Elite groups of highly educated females stayed at home rather than do the type of work a large number of lower middle class and working class women were doing. Occasionally, a few of these women defied the convention. Defied convention and worked outside of the home performing tasks way below their educational skills and facing resistance from husbands and families. It was this resistance that turned the issue of the working outside the home into an issue of gender discrimination and made oppressing patriarchy and seeking equal rights with men of their class and the political platform that should choose feminism rather than class struggle. From the offset, reformist white women with class privilege were all well aware that the power and freedom they wanted was the freedom they perceived men of their class enjoying. I see. So again, the problem with in my country, the problem with the white, well-educated working class women, they kind of wanted to enjoy the same kind of jobs that the privileged white middle class of the middle class, upper middle class had, and so this was literally just kind of the liberal identity politics kind of problem of how they see female liberation is just more women CEOs. And as a leftist, that's a position I can't agree with, because it's kind of you're just making or more women senators or more women politicians, just making your oppressors more diverse. I don't think is a good solution to the overall problem, because the system's oppressions are still there. But continuing back with the essay. These resistance to patriarchal male dominations in the domestic household provided them with a connection they used to unite across class and other women who were wary of male domination. But only privileged women who had the luxury to imagine working outside the home would actually provide them with an income which would enable them to be economically self-sufficient. Working class women already knew that the wages they received would not liberate them. And this is kind of this is also kind of shows the problem with liberal feminism, as it were. It's they don't have the intersectional class as well. To be truly intersectional, you have to include class in that. You should not include class to exclusions of others, which class. Sorry for hitting my microphone there, which is why the class first leftists are so wrong, as it were, because you're trying to put class in front of first before every other kind of category of oppression. And But like a liberal feminist goes in the opposite direction of just like, no, class is not important at all. We got to include class into like everything, and it's just as important as like cisgender patriarchy and white supremacy and ableism and like settler colonialism as well. So this is where I was at. Okay, back to the essay. Reformist efforts on the part of the privileged groups of women to change the workforce so that women workers would be paid more and face less gender-based discrimination and harassment on the job had positive impact on the lives of all women. And these gains are important. Yet the fact that privileged women gain in class power while masses of women still do not receive wage equity with men is an indication of the way in which class interest supersedes feminist efforts to change the workforce so that women would receive equal pay for equal work. So yes, it's kind of like, it's kind of sad that like this, it has to be the privileged class that had to like speak for the underprivileged classes, as it were. But that's the problem with the feminist class struggle, is that it is usually the privileged white women that were the stay-at-home moms from a privileged background of class that were able to get the mainstream media focus, because the working class women were still had to like be the like domestic housewives when they come home, but also have to work as well with the poor wages that they have, and thus didn't have like the liberation. But I'll continue with the essay. I probably shouldn't have mansplained too much as well. So I'll continue to just read from bell hooks. Continuing from the essay. Lesbian feminist thinkers were among the first activists to raise the issue of class in the feminist movement, expressing their viewpoints in an accessible language. There were a group of women who had not imagined they could depend on husbands to support them, and they were often much more aware than their straight counterparts of all of the difficulties all women would face in the workplace. In the early 1970s, analogies like class and feminism anthologies, actually. Okay, read that portion. In the early 70s, anthologies like Class and Feminism, edited by Charlotte Brunch and Nancy Monroe, published work written by women from diverse backgrounds who were confronting the issue in feminist circles. Each essay emphasized the fact that class was not simply a question of money. In the last straw, Rita Brown, who was not a famous writer at the time, clearly stated, quote, "Class is much more than Marx's definition of relations to the means of production. Class involves your behavior, your basic assumptions, and how you are taught to behave. What you expect from yourself and from others, your concept of the future, how you understand problems and solve them, how you think, feel, and act," unquote. These women who entered feminist groups made up diverse classes, were among the first to see the vision of a political-based sisterhood where all females would unite together to fight patriarchy could not emerge until the issues of class was confronted. Placing class on a feminist agenda opened up the space where the intersections of class and race were made apparent. Within the institutionalized race, sex, class and social system in our society, black females were clearly at the bottom of the economic totem pole. So, quick commentary here. Again, going back to the first essay I read, this is why class first, like, leftists get it wrong. Thinking that, like, talking about just class as an only class, the black woman that's at the bottom of the economic totem pole will feel like that their concerns are not as important, and then like if like the people who are leading the like class first liberation are just like a bunch of cishet white dudes, then the concerns that the black women have for the movement, like there was like for Occupy Wall Street, there's a lot of problems like sexism and misogyny in that movement, and I'm not sure how well that like the people who were like kind of at the forefront of Occupy were able to address that. It was like a leaderless group movement as well, and the fact that a leaderless group movement had difficulty addressing the misogyny in Occupy shows that like there's a lot of work to be done on recognizing those kind of problems. Which is why, again, class first leftists are wrong, and we need to be more intersectional. So continuing with the essay. Initially, well-educated white women from working-class backgrounds were more visible than black women of all classes in the feminist movement. They were a minority within the movement, but theirs was the voice of experience. They know better than their privileged class comrades of any race the cost of resisting race, class, and gender domination. They knew what it is like to struggle to change one's economic situation. Between them and their privileged class comrades, there were ongoing conflicts over appropriate behavior, over the issues that would be presented as foundational feminist concerns. Within the feminist movement, women from privileged class backgrounds who had never before been involved in leftist freedom fighting learned that concrete politics of class struggle, confronting challenges made by less privileged women, and also learning in the process assertiveness skills and constructive ways to cope with conflict. Despite constructive interventions, many privileged white women continue to act as though feminism belongs to them, as though they were in charge. And this sounds like one of the problems that is in the feminist movement, this war, white feminism. Yeah, and because it's the privileged class of working of middle class women, not working class women, middle class women, the stay at home moms that happen to be from a privileged background and that be white, kind of see themselves as in charge and see themselves in front of the movement because they're the ones that are most visible to the mainstream media, and so they not understanding a class struggle and kind of seem to be ignoring that is a part of a problem, especially for the working class women who don't really see their material conditions improving. As mentioned earlier in the essay, they knew that work did not liberate them, and yet these middle class white women just they're being cooped up in the homes. Which I'm not saying is not a problem, but it's not understanding how the working class women feel about this, and not listening to them is concerning. Anyway, back to the essay. Mainstream patriarchy reinforces the idea that the concerns of women from privileged class groups were the only ones worthy of receiving attention. Yeah. Feminist reform aimed to gain social equality for women within the existing structure. Privileged women wanted equality with men of their class. Despite sexism amongst their class, they would not want to have to look... Okay, I'll reread that again. Despite sexism among their class, they would not have wanted to have the lot of working class men. Feminist efforts to grant women social equality with men of their class neatly coincide with white supremacist capitalist patriarchal fears that white power would diminish if non-white people gain equal access to economic power and privilege, supporting what in effect became white power reformist feminism, enabled the mainstream white supremacist patriarchy to bolster its power while simultaneously undermining the racial politics of feminism. So this is so my commentary. This is a big critique about white feminism when they're focused on just when the middle class white feminists that were the stay-at-home moms but didn't work, wanted class equity amongst their class. They didn't realize that they were also reforming the white supremacists of the movement and the white power reform, and create their own kind of problems of white power reforms feminism. And unfortunately, it was in something the mainstream patriarchy didn't have a problem enforcing. So they didn't mind some of the middle class women gaining more power, equal power with the white men, because it still enforced the class dynamic. That's what it was. And the white middle class feminists that thought themselves as the leaders and get the most attention from mainstream media seem to think it's fine because they get more class privileges and equal class privileges with men, and whilst the concerns of working class women were not listened to, and the often the working class women tends not to be of people of color as well, disproportionately. I bet there's more of the women in color. There are more women of color in working class than there are in middle class. But anyway, I continue with the essay. Only revolutionary feminist thinkers express outrage at this co-option of the feminist movement. Our critiques and outrage gain a hearing in the alternative press. In her collection of essays, The Coming of Black Genocide, racial white activist Mary Barefoot boldly states, quote, "There are white women, hurt and angry, who believe that 70s women's movement meant sisterhood and who feel portrayed by I'm coming across the word and I don't know how to pronounce. I think I know how it's pronounced, but I just want to be sure. And so
escalator.
Ugh. Like the moving stairs. Sometimes my brain just is like that. It's just like brain freezes. I'm like, wait, how do I pronounce this word? People who have seen my streams are kind of used to that. Oh, I still have my content warnings up on the screen. I'll mute them for now because I don't think I'll need them for anything like that. So I'll reread the quote from Mary Barefoot. Quote, "There are white women hurt and angry who believe that the 70s women's movement meant sisterhood and who felt betrayed by escalator women, by women who went back to home to patriarchy. But the women's movement never left the father's dick's side. There was no war. There was no liberation. We got a share of the genocidal profits, and we love it. We are sisters of patriarchy, true supporters of national class oppression. Patriarchy in its highest forms is Euro-imperialist on a world scale. If we're Dick's sisters and want what he has gotten, then in the end we support that system that he got it all from." Unquote. Indeed, many more feminist women found and find it easier to consider divesting white supremacist thinking than their own class elitism. Your feminism got to be intersectional, and it has to include class. Continuing with the article, essay. As privileged women gain greater access to economic power with men of their class, feminist discussions of class were no longer commonplace. Instead, all women were encouraged to see the economic gains of affluent females as a positive sign for all women. In addition, their gains rarely changed the lot of poor working class women, and since privileged men did not become equal caretakers in the domestic household, the freedom of the privileged class of women of all races had required the sustained subordination of working class and poor women. In the 1990s, coalition with the existing social structure was the price of women's liberation. At the end of the day, class power proved to be more important than feminism, and this coalition helped to stabilize the feminist movement. When women acquire greater class status and power without conducting themselves differentially from male feminist politics were undermined. A lot of women felt betrayed. Middle and lower middle class women who were suddenly compelled by the ethos of feminism to enter the workforce did not feel liberated once they faced the hard truth that working outside the home did not mean work in the home would be equally shared with male partners. No-fault divorce proved to be more economically beneficial to men than women, as many black women and women of color saw white women from privileged classes. But oh fuck. For the recording, as it were, I successfully reconnected. Okay. That also means that I lose on the viewers I have. It didn't happen. Okay, there we go. It's back. But now I don't know where I didn't know where like I lost connection. I don't know what happened. I just disconnected. OBS just disconnected, and it's just like, so. I think I'll reread from the beginning of this like paragraph. That's the best thing I know, because unless someone in my audience can like tell me. And I'd say hi if you're still in the chat, unless you're lurking, which is totally fine if you're lurking. But I'm just going to reread this paragraph again. When women acquire greater class status and power without conducting themselves differently from male feminist politics were undermined, a lot of women felt betrayed. Middle and lower middle class women who were suddenly compelled by the ethos of feminism to enter the workplace did not feel liberated once they faced the hard truth that working outside the home did not mean work in the home would be equally shared with male partners. No fault, divorce proved to be more economically beneficial to men than women, as many black women and women of color saw white women from privileged classes benefiting economically more than other groups from reformist feminist gains, from gender being tracked on the racial affirmative actions, and simply reaffirmed that their fears that feminism was really about increased white power. The most predominant portrayal of feminist issues have been the lack of mass-based feminist protests, claiming that the government's assault on single women and the dismantling of the welfare system. Privileged women, many of whom call themselves feminists, have simply turned away from the feminization of poverty. Yeah. I'll finish up the rest of this essay and then I'll add my commentary as it comes to my head. The only genuine hope of feminist liberation lies with a vision of social change which challenges class elitism. Western women have gained class power and greater gender inequality because a global white supremacist patriarchal enslaves and or subordinates masses of third world women. In this country, the combined forces of booming prison, industrial, and workforce-oriented welfare in conjunction with conservative immigration policies create and condone the conditions for indentured slavery. Ending welfare would create a new underclass of women and children to be abused and exploited by the existing structures of domination. Given the changing realities of class in our nations, widening gaps between the rich and poor, and the continued feminization of poverty, we desperately need a mass-based radical feminist movement that can be built on the strength of the past, including the positive gains gendered by reforms, while offering meaningful integration of existing feminist theories that was simply wrong-minded, while offering us new strategies, signifying a visionary movement would ground its work in the concrete conditions of the working class and poor women. So yeah, as Bell Hooks is like laying out there, it's like, yes, the white middle class women that like were tired of being cooped up in their homes and like wanted to work outside their homes and or wanted like enjoy equality with men, meaning to like work in the workforce, they really did not listen to like their sisters of the lower class, of the poor and middle class and the working class, of saying it's like, it's not, no, work has not liberated us, and also it's we still have to do most of the housework, which is unfortunate, but that's how it is. So yeah. And now I come to the end of the stream, and I have only one viewer, which I will blame on the fact that like my stream crapped out. And so, I'm not blaming on my viewers for like leaving me, as it were. So I don't think I don't know if I want to like raid out, as it were, with my one viewer, as it were. That's like, so I think I will just end the stream, as it were. So thank you for everyone who like come and watching, and and joining me. I think Lin Wu. I think like the new followers. I think like everyone that joined me. The session was good and great and all. But I'm just gonna like since I have one viewer, I don't see the point of like um rating out into like another stream with just one viewer. If I had more viewers, then I would do it, I swear. If I at least had two viewers, I know that I would do it. But like the one viewer, I know it's just me, so I'm just going to like end the stream, as it were. And thank you all for like coming and listening and watching to me. Follow me on Twitter at SomeRandomGeek. With that's threes instead of e's and geek. That will be the best place to like find out when I'm going to be like streaming next. And thank you all for like coming, listening, and watching. And I will end the stream now. Don't forget, but also on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit like on my videos. Check out my other videos that I do. If you're listening to the podcast, then don't forget to give me the like a 5-star review, or give me a good review on your iTunes or SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever like a podcatching app that you catch this on. And I will catch you all later at another time. So this is Summer Geek saying, signing off and saying, stay awesome, my friends.